You know, I mean, I keep saying this, and I think I keep saying this every time, but Harry Reid now has gone on the floor. He said McConnell broke the deal, supposedly in the caucus, in the Thursday caucus. Reid, according to Politico, began by apologizing to his colleagues for cutting a bipartisan deals to avert the nuclear option, including at the beginning of this year. And he said,
but wait,
I ate.
Go ahead. I won't go. Go ahead. Sorry.
I ate on some of these nominees. It's written sh. I assume he actually said I ate the shite on some of these nominees. He told his colleagues. And so this is, you know, again, like, I don't know what the deal he can make with McConnell is this time, if this is a bluff. I don't know what deal he thinks he can make.
He came out and he said that I heard that, yeah, that two of the nominees, I mean, we're talking about the Department of Labor now, NLRB, as you said, talking about the Consumer Bureau, which they don't believe in, so they won't allow anyone to run that. You know, we're talking about a bunch of judges.
EPA,
we're talking about a number of things here, and of course, they're like, well, you know, I can't think of who it was. It was Chuck Grassley about a few weeks ago, but some other imbecile in the Republican Party is like, well, why do we need to pack the courts? They work just as well as they do with the current number of people, which is idiotic. And it's like, well, there's 3 vacancies, moron. That when there are vacancies, you fill them. See, that's the way it works.
Well, yeah, the Republicans were talking about trying to shift the 3 vacancies on the D.C. Court of Appeals to other circuits. I mean,
right.
And as a way of maintaining a Republican domination of that court.
Right. And to add to all of this, most of these guys that are saying what they're saying right now were the very same ones that were threatening the nuclear option in 2005.
Right.
To do the exact same thing, so that they got most of what they wanted. But now it's the you know, and again, I just get so tired of these guys cowering to the empty threats of Mitch McConnell.
Well, look,
because the truth is, here it is. Guess what, guys? You know, one, really? Oh my God! Now Mitch McConnell has threatened to double secret probation on you. Like, he's going to block everything. You better not do it, because he's threatening if you do it. Now they're really going to obstruct.
Well, I mean, here's the problem. I mean, Ezra Klein had a piece about this. Was essentially they have obstructed to the point where the threat that they're going to obstruct more has no leverage, because they have obstructed everything. And
right. I mean, what are they going to obstruct? Immigration? A gun bill?
Yeah.
They're going to obstruct. I mean, there's just no point. They're already doing this to everything. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if you're watching what's going on in this country right now, I mean, are we watching the motorcycle vagina bills going through North Carolina? Where people are inserting, you know, these bills into things that have nothing to do with them at the you know, in the middle of the night. What happened here in Ohio, where they slipped a couple of anti-abortion measures in a budget bill so that it wouldn't be debated, and wouldn't talk to the media, and got this thing passed without any debate. Point being, you know, hello guys, if the Republican Republicans take over the Senate in 2014. If you don't think the federal government is going to look just like North Carolina right now,
right?
And you know, I mean, Obama may be able to block a certain amount of this stuff, but and the Democrats hopefully will be able to block some of it too. But I promise you, they'll use the nuclear option immediately, and they immediately will start passing things right through from their whole wish list.
All right. Well,
North Carolina, just like all these other states they took over right afterwards. It'll be because they realize that chances are, if Hillary Clinton's the nominee, she's going to win in 2016, because all the stuff we're talking about doesn't bode well for the Electoral College or really any other Democratic nominee. And in 2016, from Kelly Ayotte to Pat Toomey to Rob Portman, who's acted like an imbecile here, to others, they won a number of races in 2010 in swing states that they very well might lose. And so there's as good a chance of the Senate going back to the Democrats in 2016, particularly with somebody at the top of the ticket who wins big, as there is of the Republicans who take it for taking it in 2014. So the truth is, they're looking at a 2-year window, and if you don't think they're going to take that window and stuff through every single Koch brothers, you know, National Right to Life Committee, NRA, and the rest wish list, you're fooling yourself.
Yeah. Now let's be explicit here. What we're talking about? They would essentially change the rules with a 51 vote majority. and the rules would change if Reid goes through with this, to basically say you need a simple majority to confirm presidential appointees, nominees to executive offices. Nothing would change in terms of judges. Nothing would change in terms of legislation. There are people who want to go further with this in terms of with judges.
With everything, perhaps?
But here's the calculation, okay, is that assume that a Republican wins in 2016. Unlikely in terms of presidents, but assume. And then also assume that the Republicans take over the Senate in 2016. The Democrats have, I mean, it is very hard. I guess John Bolton comes to mind. But it's very hard to think about an example of when a Republican president has picked a head of an agency, nominated a head of an agency, when they have not been confirmed by the Senate. I mean, it is just very rare when Democrats have been in control that they have done this. It's different with judges.
And in the Democrats' defense, anybody with as big a milk mustache as Bolton,
no, I understand.
is actually relatively frightening too.
I think there are times where it is where you do this, but
there's an amendment in the Constitution. If you have a milk mustache of a certain length and width, we don't want you going to the UN to blow up 10 floors of the UN buildings that you said you'd like to see happen and throw shoes at people.
My point is that Democrats have obstructed nominees, heads of agencies, in a much more rare fashion. So this isn't that much of a risk, because the Democrats probably wouldn't be filibustering too many heads of agencies anyways going forward in the future. I just don't think that's the case. The risk is that the Republicans might take over the Senate, and they may extend this as a precedent and go with 50-vote legislation.
Again,
but they will probably do that anyways.
Look at what these people have done. I mean, these are people that, if you just want to take the example in Texas, where they couldn't get their bill through by midnight, first of all, here's what they did. So you want to talk about rule changing? That they needed a two-thirds majority to get through all the anti-abortion measures, because that was what you need on these more controversial type measures in the Texas legislature. So they just called a special session, and then they declared the two-third rule no longer exists for the special session. Now we just need a majority, a simple majority. After that, when they couldn't get through their bill because of what Wendy Davis and others did, they voted after midnight, plainly against the rules. Then somebody literally sat there and changed the timestamp on the vote to pretend it had been before midnight. And had so many people not been watching at that moment, then they would have gotten away with it. So look at what they did. They changed the rules. They voted at a time clearly they weren't allowed to, and they literally committed fraud to sit there and change the timestamp on something. This is what the people in this party are willing to do. So yeah, they probably will extend it to everything, which is why Democrats should do it on everything now. But again, unless they find a way to call in the paramilitary, we still do have a Democratic president, which means they still do have to find a way to override vetoes.
Yes, and so the bottom line is that in 2014 you've got 19 Democrats up for re-election, 14 up for the Republicans. But in 2016, as you mentioned, you've got 13 Democrats up for re-election and 24 Republicans up for re-election in 2016.
And the Republicans are in, again, I mentioned Ayotte,
yeah.
I mentioned Portman. I mean, there's a lot of swing seats there. There's a lot of people like Ayotte and Toomey are two that come to mind that are way too conservative for the states they want. And they wanted, and another one, I mean, Johnson in Wisconsin.
Right.
I mean, he's a lunatic who's more worthy of being from Alabama and representing them, and no offense to progressive Alabamians, if that's the right way to put it, who are listening, but, overall state. I mean, sure, there'll be money dumped in there, but the Democrats won't be as surprised and dumb. I assume in 2016 there'll be a Democratic candidate at the top of the ticket winning Wisconsin, likely by a decent margin. So, I mean, we would have to pick people as crazy out of the mainstream as Republicans have been doing, which for us to go to that side, I think we'd need to go for LaRoucheites or something, to not pick up those seats up again in 2016. So there may be a 2-year, period of time when they control Congress, but we know during that period of time we're going to have a Democratic president.
Right.
He doesn't always support everything we support. I assume he won't sign crazy abortion bills and crazy anti-gay bills and things into law.
And
I hope I can safely assume that.
Yeah, and so I think the risk, and what never gets calculated into this too is the risk of not doing anything in terms of a precedent setting, because there is no reason to believe that if the Republicans get away with not nominating, essentially trying to nullify the legislation that created the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau by holding up its director, to essentially defang to basically the EPA, keep the EPA from doing its job by not approving somebody, to do the same thing with the National Labor Relations Board. There is also a precedent being set here as well, that if there is no response, that will have just as detrimental effects going down in the future. So,
they'll block a Secretary of State, they'll block a Secretary of Defense. Yes. Again, this is what's been going on now. You wrote your book in 2006, as you said. I wrote mine in 2008 about McCain, who isn't even as crazy as some of the other ones, pointing out some of the stuff going on with his party. And the truth is, I wrote articles as far back as the late 90s after the 94 Republican House takeover, and every time sort of our response was, they've gone to the fringe. It's hard to believe they can get much crazier than this, and then they do.
Yeah.
So it's only, is there a place where it has to stop? I guess. I don't know if you can get much crazier than Jim Inhofe and Louis Gohmert, but history tells us they can find somebody crazier, because they always do. So at some point you need to stand up to this kind of behavior, or they start setting precedents for what. The filibuster is a great example. It was only used in what was considered extreme circumstances on very contentious legislation in the past, and then we allowed them to start using it a little bit more during Bill Clinton's time with no response, and then even much more than that now during Obama's time, and now it's become just an accepted fact that you need 60 votes for everything, and people think that's the way it's always been. No. Even with the existence of the filibuster for many, many, many years, it was rarely, if ever, used.
Yeah,
that's what precedent does.
And this is it's obviously there's risk inherent in everything, but I think there's just as much risk inherent in doing nothing. So hopefully, I don't know. I haven't read anything yet as to get a sense of when this is going to go down. But if you're going to do it sooner rather than later, right?
Harry Reid has to start realizing that there is a point
but this isn't just
President Obama passed a long time ago, that when you make empty threats and never live up to them, people really don't take you seriously on those threats anymore.
Yes, and look, the bottom line is not just Harry Reid. The bottom line is you got Rockefeller apparently is saying that he is now sort of ready to do this. There's a couple other senators who said that they weren't before, who are supposedly ready now to do this. So I think that I think it's going to happen, and I imagine if you're going to do it, like I say, you do it sooner rather than later.
Well, that's always what these guys do, is they wait until it's too late. Right. It's kind of like what Obama should have done when he had 59 and then 60 senators, but he decided to be Mr. Nice Guy and let the other guys have 2/3 of what they wanted, and then by the time he was ready to stand up to them in any way, shape, or form, they controlled the House.
Yeah,
and he had many fewer senators. It's kind of like, had Harry Reid done this when we started off, this congressional session, we had 55 votes. We're now down to 54. Would he like to wait longer?
Right. Well, Cliffy, hope springs eternal. I would like to see this happen. And also, frankly, it just makes the Senate more democratic. And you know, there is just.
I mean, this isn't just about partisan, gain. Even though at this point I would find it hard not to be a partisan because I look at one party whose party's policies or lack thereof is literally insane. But again, this is about government. This is about government working. Stuff is supposed to pass. That's theoretically the reason we have a government. There are problems in society. You pass bills to address those problems. That's what they're there for. None of that's happening anymore.
Right.
So, I mean, it's ridiculous. And really, a bit of strategic advice, because I don't know what the hell the DSCC is doing, or other independent groups. Come on. I mean, Jesus Christ, guys. Mitch McConnell could cause a lot less trouble in Washington if you would spend the next year and a half concentrating $50 million on beating the living crap out of him in Kentucky.
Well, now
and he might actually still win, but if you pinned him down there, now there's a reasonable alternative from a very prominent Democratic family in Kentucky, Allison Lundgren Grimes. If you were to pin him down there, so he'd just spend all his money defending himself and all his time in Kentucky trying to hold on because he's got a 30% approval rating, guess what? He'd be in Washington a lot less and able to cause a lot less trouble. I don't understand how it is people don't seem to get this.
I think that's that's not only is that a great point. The one other thing I want to add to this that Ezra Klein had posted an email he got from a Senate Democratic staffer who says their theory, at least this one staffer's theory, is that McConnell wants this. He wants Harry Reid to go nuke because then McConnell is basically, it's out of his hands, right? He's not responsible he can't make an active decision to obstruct any of these nominees. He doesn't have to work out the details. It's just a foregone conclusion. There's nothing he can do. He can throw his hands up in the.
But also, he loves his whole campaign, as you'll see, as it unfolds. He's just one of the most shameless, disgusting people that has been in Washington, in the last few decades, and that's saying a lot. He will play the victim. That's what he does.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, that's what all conservatives like to do. Oh my God, they're hurting me.
It'll be great for his fundraising.
Yep. Oh, I can write that fundraising letter from already. An unprecedented dictatorial Obama, Reid, Pelosi assault on our freedoms. I mean, it's easy to write. So I could see him liking it too. He likes it either way. Either if he keeps obstructing stuff, the Tea Party loves him for that, and if if they take away, if they do the big push and take away power, he gets to write that fundraising pitch about the unprecedented assault on our liberties going on by the liberals in Washington.
Indeed,
it's win-win for him.
It is, but I think it's also a win if we can get appoint people to the National Labor Relations Board.
No. I mean, it's win-win for him, and then on our side, one way is we win too, and another way we lose.
Right.
So it makes sense to give him what he wants. Let him write his fundraising letters. Let's get the people in there who deserve to be in there. Let's set the precedent that needs to be set. Oh, and by the way, people who have independent amounts of money, start kicking this guy's ass and keeping him in Kentucky.
Cliff Schecter, ladies and gentlemen, listen up, you people with a lot of money in independent outside groups. Do what Cliff Schecter says. All right, Cliffy, we'll talk to you next week. Appreciate it, buddy.
Hey, always a pleasure, Sammy. Thanks, man.